The recession that will change a generation. Ever heard of the word recession? It's been one of the many things that many people have feared over the years, so I'm pretty sure you have. But before we go into the video, let me give you a brief explanation of the word. Although I'm sure most of you know about it, let's give the benefit of the doubt to others. It's a brief period of an economic downturn in which there's a decrease in the industry and trade activity, typically indicated by a decline in the GDP over the course of 2 consecutive quarters. To put it simply, the economy suffers during a recession. It's also detrimental to both companies' capital, and not just to labor workers. Now that you have the gist of it, here's a recession that will change a generation. On to the video. Recession. A short word, but did you know that majority, if not all, in the financial industry are terrified of hearing it? The threat of recession is real for the ordinary individual. For instance, it's been reported that more than 22 million people lost their jobs during the most recent recession, and those who have continued working through a recession might see their working hours or commission rates reduced or cut. During this unfortunate time, employers also frequently eliminate their bonuses and raises. The United States has been largely immune to these economic downturns since the Great Recession of 2008, except for a significant drop in March in the year 2020 due to an unexpected pandemic. The US economy has enjoyed a golden age of absolutely astounding returns with little to no difficulty. The S&P 500 has returned 357% since the year 2010. Those who were fortunate enough to invest during this golden period saw their portfolios grow far beyond the predictions of experts. Today, however, there's trouble in the area due to a market paradigm shift that has everyone, including JP Morgan, worried. Since the year 2010, the S&P 500 has experienced only 3 drawdowns greater than 15%, and each time they happened, the market quickly recovered to new all-time highs, making the previous 12 years essentially worry-free for investors. Drawdowns were extremely uncommon during the epic post-recession price surge, and when they did occur, buying the dip was an immensely lucrative strategy. Given those facts, I'm sure one is forced to wonder why everyone is so concerned about a recession when the current contraction is, at least numerically, unexceptional. The solution is in 2 places, and once you figure it out, you'll understand why everyone is panicking. Similar situations in the past have always resulted in a quick recovery. I'm telling you, we had it easy in the past. Every time the market fell, the Fed was there to protect us. What is Fed, you might wonder? The Fed, an abbreviation for the Federal Reserve System, is the central bank of the United States. It was established by Congress to provide the nation with a much more secure, versatile, and reliable banking system. The era of quick profits makes it appear to be over, and the market will now have to survive without the supplements and steroids that the US government was injecting into it. However, after years of financial exploitation, especially after March 2020, safeguarding is no longer available, at least for the time being. The Federal Reserve is dealing with severe inflation, which it has not seen since the early 80s. This assumption has resulted in a massive sell-off based on speculation about growth stocks. Zoom, for example, has lost more than 80% of its value since its peak price in October 2020. But it's tough to predict how bad things are overall by looking at the S&P 500. While the S&P is only down 14%, many retail favorites are now worth only half of what they were in 2020. What's happening in the economy comes crashing down. That's unfortunate, and people would surely be impacted by it if a recession is on the way. Why does the most important index appear to be holding up relatively well? What happened to the massive drawdown of 2008? What's driving the markets today, following a roughly 50% drop in the SPY? The explanation can be found at the very top of the rankings. As it's seen, according to many experts, Apple is the singular entity trying to prevent an index spiral of epic proportions by retaining up a market that appears to be in total disarray, with its stock low down over 14% from its peak. If Apple fails, the market fails, and while its latest financial call was well received by most analysts, there are growing concerns about the credibility of its report. Now, according to Meet Kevin, a financial analyst and real estate broker, During one of the most recent earnings reports, Apple was questioned and also managed to dodge all three questions, which is indicative of how the rest of the market is handling things. Executives can only mask the pain for so long before trying to shift consumer behavior becomes pretty apparent and the real pain begins. It's also the reason why major financial institutions or big banks, including JP Morgan, are forecasting a recession that won't occur immediately and will likely unfold like a slow-moving train wreck. In an interview, here's what Michael Farrelly, chief U.S. economist at JP Morgan, has to say as he discusses this. His remarks should serve as a warning to all investors. The interviewer even said to him that it's hard to imagine that they're having conversations like that about a recession when they're adding in a tight job market, more than 400,000 jobs, and as well as an unemployment rate of 3.6%. He said something along the lines of, non-verbatim, "I believe most people are aware that the economic momentum is favorable right now, and as you mentioned, with the jobs number looking very timely and looking very strong. But as we can also see these financial conditions tighten, many of the things you just mentioned, including stocks down, rates up, and the dollar way up over time. If this continues, the recession, at least as I comprehend that the recession narrative or discussion is all about perhaps next year, not about next quarter." As you may have heard from Michael, the Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates several times this year. And as a result of the tightening, a few things have been happening. A stronger currency makes imports cheaper while making products more expensive and less competitive on global markets, which is why the dollar index is reaching new highs. Because the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates, American business will find it more difficult to sell their products abroad. This will have a significant impact on a variety of financial sectors. Mortgage rates have already surpassed 5%, and if they continue to rise, the housing market will also eventually will come to a halt as affordability falls and stagflation fears grip the economy. It's always good to be prepared though, although this reeks of privilege because not everyone could save. It's a big risk to lose your job during a recession, but with everything happening, we might never know. Make a savings account so that when all else fails, you have something to tap into. The economic phenomenon has two sides, inflation and recession. Both bad terms in the finance industry. Rising prices are bad enough on their own, but when you combine them with high unemployment and poor growth, oh boy, you have a disaster waiting to happen. It affects everything around you. There's this interview wherein the interviewer questioned, "So what do you think this is all about? The big rally off the Fed and then the big sell-off of the Fed. Is it about concerns that the Fed's going to make a mistake or not get inflation under control, or what?" Here's how Michael responded to that question. "Well, yeah, the reaction seems a little bit sclerotic. I do think Powell misspoke or was a little too firm in ruling out 75 basis points on Wednesday, but I think that's a misreading, and I think they'll do what they have to do. But there may have been some words, he would have chosen differently, but the reaction has been a little bit odd." He even added, "However, I believe that the fact that interest rates are rising and the value of the dollar is rising is the type of reaction they're hoping for. After all, they aren't playing around. They want to tighten financial conditions and slow the rate at which people spend and the economy continues to expand." As a result, Mr. Farrelly effectively accuses the federal government of deceiving us yet again. Some interpreted Powell's remarks at the most recent meeting, in which he essentially stated that he would not even consider raising rates by 75 basis points as the Fed failed to address inflation. If inflation persists, the Fed will be forced to make a difficult decision. In reality, what they must do is simple, but no one in the broadcast would admit it. They say it's simple: crash the economy and allow inflation to spiral out of control. But what about the ones who are going to be greatly affected? The prospect of a soft landing is rapidly declining, and Powell will soon have the most difficult job in America, engineering short-term pain to avoid long-term destruction. After this, kind of long discussion about recession, jobs, and money, what are your thoughts? For you, is the recession good? Who do you think benefits from it? Are there people who do benefit from it? Maybe there's a silver lining. And what about your thoughts on inflation? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you guys. Don't forget to click the like button, comment on the video, and share the video, of course. Please also make sure to click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to get notified of more videos like this. Until next time.